Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hot Seat with Cognizant Clay. I am your host, Clayton Terrio. Today on the show, we have David Montez. David is a former public safety officer and 911 dispatcher. He is diagnosed with fibromyalgia, POTS, and PTSD. He has a podcast called the Chronic Victory Podcast. It focuses on chronic illnesses and how to overcome them, as well as philosophy and other very deep things. His motto is stay in the fight. I hope you guys enjoy it.
How's it going, David?
Hey man, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. Can you hear me okay? I'm using my podcast mic. I hope that's
Yeah, no, you're clear as a bell here. We my last interview wasn't too good, so I'm glad you have audio. It's always the other person too, because I've got my mic and my headset too, so
gotcha.
we're all good over here. Well, thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. It's pretty cool to connect.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out, dude.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love to be on yours too at some point.
Sure. I can make that happen.
Well, it'd be a lot of fun, and I've been checking out your Instagram, and I really like your vibe. You know, it's positive and just open and honest, and that's the way to be, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and to start off, how are you doing today, and how have you been doing during COVID?
Surprisingly well. Today is actually a good day. I get to cheat today. I get to I have an MRI later on my leg. And so I got the green light for today to go nuts and hurt myself, basically. So I'm going to probably after this suit up, put the Camelback on, and do things that I'm not supposed to do. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, there you go. You gotta do that sometimes.
Yeah, they said make sure you swell up and get hurt and then quickly go in and get that MRI so we could see what's going on. So I'm like, I could do that. I'm good at that.
It's always good. So just for my viewers, I'll get into the disabilities that you have first, just so people know. So you're diagnosed with fibromyalgia and POTS, which I do know what fibromyalgia is, but I don't know what POTS is. Can you just explain what each condition is?
Yeah. So aside from having the dumbest name of all conditions, POTS, I thought, why? Even fainting goat syndrome would be a lot cooler, in my opinion, because that's kind of what it is. So you got fibromyalgia, which most people know is just like all over unexplained body pain. I have that. And then the POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, also dumb name once said out loud, like to its full length. It's several that it's more, that one's more complicated. And the way I always explain it is the same way my doctor explained it was like a picture of a bike wheel, and then POTS is at the center. And then all the spokes of the wheel are different things like fainting, lightheadedness, just feeling really woozy, excessive sweating, just all sorts of weird, like blood pressure irregulation. And a lot of people relate it to, you know, when you stand up too fast, a lot of people do that and they're like, oh, they get lightheaded, so they have to like lean over. And so instead of just having it when you do that, it's like having that, but just all the time. And so what they say, there's no real cure for it, just increase salt intake, increase fluids, because that brings up your baseline. So hopefully you don't faint as much. So if you do get really wonky and weird, that you'll have that baseline of salt and fluid to keep you upright. At least that's the idea. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but otherwise they try to prescribe beta blockers and stuff, and I wasn't too into that, so I don't do that. Or low dose steroids so your body holds more water. But again, that you're talking about things that affect other elements of your body, so I wasn't really into that either. So that's kind of POTS. I hope I did kind of a good job explaining that. Probably not, but basically it's feeling crummy, having a lot of irregulation and unexplained events, and fainting is something that I've experienced that's pretty bad with it. Dizziness, lightheadedness, kind of those common things.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty brutal condition, but you seem pretty positive, and you don't seem to, pity yourself or feel bad for yourself. And I'm kind of the same way. It's like, what are you gonna do about it, right? I mean, you have it. It's best to manage it. And how have you overcome the two diagnoses?
Yeah, and I should back up too. Like I have another heavy hitter that's PTSD on my plate, which I didn't expect would really affect me because like a lot of other people in their early 20s when I was starting out my career was I know that it's a thing, but it's not going to affect me because I'm better than that and I'm tougher than that. And that's, well, it turns out not to be true. And I wasn't always like this. You're seeing me now as the in the aftermath, like the during and while this is all happening and starting, like I was a pretty bitter, angry dude, to be honest with you. And like I would always look for a reason to blame something other than myself. And I didn't always have this mentality. So this mentality, it took a lot to get here. I had to forge a lot of it alone. And people will come into your life, people will leave. When things like this happen and you start to actually have a few diagnoses behind it. And with me too, when I had a job change, I was forced basically on leave and then fired as soon as my FMLA ran out, which is a whole nother battle. It's just like you feel a lot of abandonment, and that's really easy to have even more hard feelings if you were already bitter and angry about the stuff that's going on. So yeah, I forget your question. I apologize. I think it was how do you work through that, something like that, with those
Yeah. How do
diagnoses?
you overcome them? Yeah.
Well, the short answer would be you just keep going. The long answer is it doesn't matter. I mean, all these stories, my story, your story, all these people that I feel have either done me wrong or abandoned me, or even my friends, like everybody's story is going to end in the same place. So it's time to just focus on the things that you are able to do and the things that you are able to control. And, we don't really have a choice in if we're born. We don't have a choice in if we're dead usually. And so everything in between is what really matters now and how we're going to go about that. So it's kind of I guess my viewpoint is from efficiency. Is it more efficient and beneficial for me or my two girls? I'm a father of two girls. For me to be bitter and upset and set a bad example by having the attitude that maybe I had before when I was working and tried to hold on to a job or something? And the answer is no. So I'm if I had the quick, easy answer, I don't know. That like I'm still going through it. That's the thing. I'm still, you and I, we're both in it every day. And that's why I say with my podcast, Chronic Victory Podcast, is stay in the fight, because this is battle. And you'll see a lot of like feel good stuff, which is perfectly fine, and people need to feel good and feel welcome in these environments. But and I just said on my podcast lately, I'm not here to make you feel good. What I say is going to hurt, but it has a purpose. It's not to make you hurt, but it's designed to hurt in a way that exposes us, kind of exposes the ego for what it is, so we can ditch it, leave it behind, and get rid of all that selfishness and move forward into something that's better. The person that we always envision that we are, but we're not actively acting out as that person. And I wasted countless months and years just being somebody that I didn't want to be, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I guess the more correct answer, the more I yak here, is probably just to keep doing battle and keep learning, and just I'm a real big fan of philosophy right now, and a lot of people don't like that, but I'm finding that with and I don't know your thoughts about all this either. I'd be curious to know, but with my faith combined with Stoic philosophy, I don't know how much you know about that, but that is like a superpower right now, where I just feel unbeatable. Where it's more of like Stoicism at the core is, everybody thinks it as being this robot with no emotions and not having feelings, and it's the total opposite. It's managing your emotions and feelings, having them, um, practicing them the way they should be, the way they were intended, and then focusing on the stuff that you can control. It's the whole idea of you're not in control of jack shit. You're not in control of anything, except for your own thoughts and perceptions of something. And you can try like hell to get better, or I can keep trying to keep my job like I was, or be a better person. I could keep trying to be an athlete or something, or have some aspirations, which is still admirable. But in the end, you're really not in control of that. And so rather than, where I'm going with this is, rather than having events happen in your life, and I had all these events happen, instead of looking at them as good or bad. So there's good and evil, but then there's good and bad. So in daily life, we have good and bad, what we think is good and bad. And so if you look at something bad, that is only bad because of the way I perceive it and the way I act on it. So if I can simply look at something now that happens, instead of thinking it's a bad thing, and with that usually comes some form of negativity, I can look at it and say, okay, that just is. It's not good or bad. It just is. So here's what I can control about that, and that's what I'm going to do. And even if you can't, just accepting it's not good or bad. It happened. We deal with it. We move forward and just keep moving.
Right.
So to take way too long to answer your question, that's what I would say.
No, it's all good. And I don't know much about like stoicism as you describe it there, but I do agree. And it's, well, I don't know if you know Gary Vee is. He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He, like real talk all the time. Like the man is so real. And
yeah.
When I was on his show Tea with Gary Vee, which was amazing. Like I was blown away just by how he deals with people. And as you say, if you look for positivity, it's there. If you look for negativity, it's there. And it's everyone. You're right. It's like, oh, this was good, this was bad. Well, no, why don't you take a step back and observe it and let it sink in, instead of whining or complaining when it's good, or getting overly excited when it's bad, or overly excited when it's good. Just take it how it is. And that's honestly so true. And I'm glad you ranted there, because you said all good stuff there. It wasn't just verbal diarrhea, which is good. But just to add to that, who in your life has helped you stay positive through all the stuff that's happened?
Well, my wife for sure. She's like, I got kind of lucky in that, I hear this mindset that we often, in the way that people kind of relate to me, those people who are like, we can't rely on anybody to take care of us except for ourselves. Get some. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But I also have my wife who actually does take care of me and takes care of like the kids, and I don't have to worry about a lot of stuff. If I'm down, if I'm in the hospital doing that whole stay and recovery thing, I started to call it the cabin, because it's my little getaway sometimes. That was a joke, but I'm lucky enough to have that. She's the one that always pulls me out, and I've brought her. Lord knows I've brought her down into the dark with me a lot more than she deserves. So I have the most credit to give to her. There's a couple good friends that I've met along the way of this whole experience, and that is life so far, that have really changed my mind, changed my mindset. And the rest of it, honestly, is people I've never even met, and people that I just have found myself, people online, doing their own podcast, doing their own shows, people like you. And if I'm one of those guys that even if I don't like something, I'll watch it anyway, so I can take what I want to from it. And everything I don't agree with or don't like, I'll just leave it behind. That's why in the podcast I say, you're not going to like everything I say. And if you do, there's something wrong with you. so take what you can use from it, and everything else that you don't want, leave it for me, leave it behind, and just move. Like, do something. You got to do something. So I think, and kind of back to the first thing we talked about is, I don't know if you heard of Jocko podcast, Jocko Willink. So back when I was having a rough transition with this whole work thing and just like my career, I had a good reputation, and just one day it's gone. All of it, all the training, all the experience, all the success, I was a decorated guy, and I like to think I was some semblance of a good leader for like the younger generations that were coming in, and it's just all taken. And then I didn't expect that. So now what? And so I just found Jocko and just started watching him. I'm like, I got to get my head out of my ass and stop feeling bad and start focusing on like what's really going on here. And it's just like, so honestly, it's people like that. It's people like David Goggins, who wrote the book Can't Hurt Me, and reading about his life experience. And you find that the majority of these people that you think are doing so great have actually had it worse than you. It kind of brings you back to reality, gives you good perspective on where you're at. So I really found it hard to sit around and play woe is me when there's so many other guys and girls out there who are doing incredible things and have had way more happen to them than I had. So I totally agree. It's kind of like the soldier's mindset, where there's people out there that we don't even know fighting for us and dying. And here we are bitching about like our Starbucks order, it's just like insane. And so really like any people, anything like that I saw really made me feel like I was squandering an opportunity to turn this into something better. And I really appreciate the people that have every reason to not be happy and not be doing something with their life and to be upset, yet they choose not to be, and they take themselves out. And my wife is actually one of those people. She was left behind by her biological father. She had a lot of family troubles and other things going on growing up. Had every reason in the book to turn into something not so good. And she's totally the opposite. So it's people like that really inspire me.
Definitely. And a lot of people, the thing I've noticed about disabilities too is a lot of people think that that's who you are, and really being disabled is just part of your story and part of my story. It's not who we are. And it's I think that perspective is way off for people from the outside looking in. And even You said people complaining about Starbucks. I hate to go back to Gary Vee again, but he told me in the interview, he goes, look at you, you're fully disabled. You probably haven't been outside because of COVID. And he goes, you have people complaining that their gyms are closed or that their coffee was made shitty this morning. And he's like, well, no, that's not, that's minutia. That doesn't matter in life.
100%, man. It in reality, it has not even been that long. People are all stir crazy at 2 months. I'm like, 2 months? I laid in bed for 8 months, just laying there, like trying to get to the bathroom was like my chore for the day. Like, if I didn't have that though, would I complain like these other people? Probably, because there always needs to be that impetus, that thing that happened to make people realize like what's really important and get that perspective. But yeah, like disability now to me is just like a haircut. Like, it's gonna change as you're wearing it. It's part of you. But you don't find somebody just staring at your hair all day and just like making decisions based on that. And if they do, they're pretty fucked up. So like, and I get a lot of flack. I don't know. I think it's privately. I get a lot of private message of people that like question the disability, or, well, how are you actually disabled if you're out there going for walks and stuff? It's not how it works. Like, half the time I'm out there doing these like I call them rucks now because walk just sounds too normal. So I put on a backpack full of water because of the POTS, right? I need it, otherwise I'm going down. And I know let me back up. Like, when all this is going really bad and PTSD was making me have temporary blindness, hearing loss, having seizures, like it was bad, man. It was really bad, and I didn't see it coming. And flashbacks and talking in my sleep and saying all this radio chatter and just pretending like I was at work, because I was just like, I felt like I was at war all the time, just always working, and it was horrible. And so then I was afraid to go outside. I was afraid to go anywhere more than 20 minutes away from a hospital because I was there so often for, like, I needed the IVs, and that whole in between seizures part for me, man, it was like, I would like have dreams that I was at a cookout, and then I'd wake up and I'm throwing up and shitting myself in front of strangers, and they rip all my clothes off, and I got double IV, and I'm like, this is great. And then you go back into seizure mode, and I used to be terrified to go anywhere and do anything. I didn't want to go out of the house. I didn't want to go to events. I didn't even want to go down to the street, like to the main street here in town for like a parade so the kids could see some fire trucks and stuff a couple of years ago. Like that's where I was at. That's not a way to live. And so now it took a lot to get here, but I'm at the point where the risk is worth the potential reward. So if I'm going to suit up and I'm going to go for a walk, I know, like, I have it in my mind that, yeah, I have this condition. If I go down, I go down, and I'll deal with that later. But I'm not going to let that stop me anymore. I got it. If I'm able to do it, or like if I have a chance that I could do it and like make the walk and get home, I got to take it. Because years from now, when I can't, whatever's going to happen, like if this gets worse or more things come to light, and I'll look back and say, oh man, I wish I would have really just tested myself and see what I was capable of in that bad time. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So I get a lot of negativity that comes my way because either I don't look the part, and then I always ask them, well, what does disability look like? Like, what does that mean? Talk about, you have these people praising invisible illness. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little salty here, but you have these people praising invisible illness awareness and stuff. And then what Gary would probably say is, A, who the fuck are you to question me? 2, I don't care what you think. And see, that's not how it works, man. You can't, this is not all cosmetic. That's not how it works. So I know what could happen. And I think others do too. And that's why you'll see people that are still active, still doing things, but yet they have a disability. And PTSD, I found out the hard way, is like a really, insurance companies think it's kind of like they'll play it off as you're making it up and it's a lie because you can't see it. I'm finding that's a really difficult one to prove. And I'm very fortunate that my employer taught me how to articulate things well and kind of use that against the insurance companies to be like, but I think about all the people that, don't have a background in speaking to people or law enforcement or anything like that of that nature, and they're like, how do I explain this? And they're just getting hammered by these people that are telling them that they're not disabled, or that, well, we, by our standards, insurance company, by our standards, we determined that you should have been completely cured of PTSD by this time. And it's like, I'm sorry, what fucking manual is that? Because I need a copy of that. That's not. How do you determine that? How do you tell somebody that their disability should be cured now, and that, like, what are they supposed to think about that? So I feel really bad about those kind of people out there. So I hope to kind of bring light to, sometimes I'll do it Instagram live and have mixed feelings about that stuff, but I'll even say, like, to any of you guys getting ready to send those messages because I'm outside being active, well, are you really disabled or not? Go fuck yourself. With respect, go fuck yourself. You always got to have that. That's what we used to say at work.
Well, it's like it reminds me of Talladega Nights. With all due respect, and don't forget, I'm saying with all due respect, it's in the Geneva Convention. Like, I always use that, and it's true. Like, yeah, dude. Who the hell are you to tell me? Like, that's the thing about, and even invisible, like you say, how do you know? You can't just assume someone's faking or not disabled. Like, I'm sure there's people that do, and there's a special place below us for people like that now. Like, seriously though, like the ones who fake, like the trans disabled people or whatever they call them, like, there's something wrong with those people. But like, who the hell are those people to tell you, oh, you're faking it? Well, how the fuck do you know? Like, you.
I think all these people are cops because they're so nosy. It's a cultural thing, man. Like, everybody's always in other people's business, and especially with social media, it's so easy to post what you think about something. I don't want people to care about what I think. Like, I don't want to play this game, I'd rather focus on the win, like the what's important now kind of stuff. And just stay humble and just I just want to be left alone. And if I can have some fun and learn and hopefully encourage other people along the way, that's it. It's as simple as it sounds.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not looking for any benefit for myself. It's just get the story out there. People won't know how to change their perspective if they don't see examples of it, and that's the main thing. Like I remember I watched I listened to a bunch of your podcasts, but the first one you had
Thanks,
in the
man.
description. Yeah, no worries. You had in the description, I was nervous. Well, yeah, when I first did my first one, I was like, like super quick, like stuttering, but also talking really quickly.
Yeah.
And as I started doing it, I got so much more comfortable, and now I could talk to anybody and not be nervous, and that's cool. But it's definitely helped. And I just wanted to touch on as you've said, you were in law enforcement for 10 years. You were a police officer, correct?
No, I was
No.
something else of a hybrid. So it's pretty confusing, but I was a 911 dispatcher, and that was like my full-time job. And then part-time, I was public safety. They called them public safety officers. Um, Same responsibilities, same tools, same utilities. The only thing is I was not like a sworn.
Right.
I didn't go to the academy. And I think if you got hired as sworn, you had 5 years to complete your academy. And so I did that for 2 years, then went full time to 911 dispatching, moved up the small short ladder there to being a trainer for the 911 dispatchers coming in. And I was also a trainer for the public safety officers that I was working with. So that was cool. I got lucky because I got to do the both sides kind of thing. A lot of people in dispatching stay there strictly. I went from patrol to dispatch back down to patrol like part-time, and I was still doing both at the end there. And I found that to be a lot more beneficial because you get to learn about, okay, what are people actually seeing when they're out here and describing things, and how can I make this easier for dispatchers communicating things, for the controllers to get me the help that I need, or how can I better assist people out in the field being at the helm and hearing the things that I am, and now I could see things from their perspective. I can actually picture the geography that they're talking about if we're looking for somebody or something. So it made it a lot easier. And trying to train that to new dispatchers that come in, man, and they don't know the terrain, and they never even get out there because everybody's already shorthanded, and that's a whole nother problem. But to be able to get them out there to learn it is another challenge. And it was always that was probably the biggest challenge. Other than I think 911 was actually more stressful than actually being on the road and patrolling. Because at least there, like back to the subject of control, like you could physically do stuff, right?
Right.
You could actually see how bad the thing was that was happening, and you could actually take action, as opposed to, say, I'm controlling now in the comm center, and everybody's tied up. Now we have this like the big disaster, like this big problem, and there's nobody to go, or there's like one guy going to this 28-person brawl with weapons, and like that's not a good thing to just have one guy going. And now I'm picturing it in my mind, and you, when you hear stuff and you can't see it, you're picturing it. And it turns out we always picture things worse in here than is actually occurring. And I found that right there translated to like daily life, not just policing, but like we're always looking at stuff so negatively and like worst case scenario. And I think I was so bitter and negative personally for a while there because of that, because I was always thinking that was kind of in the job description, is to think worst case and plan for it. And yeah, so I think if we could just kind of, I like to compare law enforcement to a lot, like those experiences, to a lot of real life things, especially like thought process, because I think it's so relatable. I just think that profession in general is just, even though it has a bad rep right now, is just, there's so much there that you can relate to daily life. So I really love to link the two.
Definitely. I think, well, it's good. And well, I had the question, like, what are some of the things you learned, but you've kind of touched on that, which is good. Do you remember kind of when it clicked that you wanted to go into that career path?
Yeah. I was 15. Well, actually, I'll back up a little. I'm going too fast. I think I was 13 when September 11th happened
Yeah.
and the terrorist attacks. And like, I didn't even know the name of those buildings. Like, I was a kid from a smaller town and pretty sheltered and just kind of kept to ourselves, right? And then I saw all this stuff that I didn't understand. I'm seeing people fall to their death on national TV and watching these buildings blow up and fall down, and I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. I've never seen anything like that. And I just remember not being able to sleep for like 3 days after that because I was like, the terror actually worked. Like I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I played it off to my family and stuff, trying to be like a man or something, but I didn't know how to process that, and I didn't understand it, and it really bothered me. And the more like as the years go on, and now we're at war as a country here, it started to sink in, like, what am I here to do exactly? And like, how much did that affect, am I going to go into business and not think about that event that I saw? So it really sparked something inside me to just try and do my part
Right.
and do something, take some sort of action to be a good human being and hopefully help other people that are not there yet. And so it came from that. And it also came from just one day I was sitting, I think it was like a Saturday, and I was watching TV with my grandpa, and he was watching some sort of like 80 cop special something. And he's like, do you think you could ever do that? And I'm like, yeah, I think I could. And that's where I got the idea. Cause I knew, like, military, I'm going to the military, hands down, no question. And then it turned out like I had asthma, allergies, reflux at a pretty young age. And I'm probably wouldn't have done so well physically. So I'm like, well, what else can I do? Law enforcement. That day it was just like law enforcement. Here we go. And then I just kind of forgot about it. And then I after I graduated high school, I went to college for one day and then stopped. I just went to work for like 4 years. And then I'm like, this is not what I wanted to do when I was 15. So I didn't really spend any money. So I used that money to just pay my way through a tech college. And I just one day just was like, here we go. Like, went into the criminal justice law enforcement program, and I surprisingly did well. Like, I never did well through high school. I was always the guy that needed extra time for tests. I had to read something 40 times to actually digest it. Because I wanted to be like, I wanted to go out and do stuff. I didn't want to just read about it and learn about the Pythagorean theorem and triangles and shit. Like, that doesn't matter to me, So I had a lot of difficulty in school, but in college it was like A's. I was always like top of class. Got to know the instructors. That turned out to get me a job really early, and I was already out there, suited up and on patrol at 21. And I got really lucky. Yeah, I mean, I was just a kid. I really didn't know what I was doing, and I had a lot of there was a lot of scary moments that I can't believe I put myself in, because you're young and you think you're trying to prove something or trying to be like some sort of hero, but like, there's a time and a place for everything. And you can't force that stuff. And
Right.
And maybe I was in the wrong place at the right time kind of stuff, where like, okay, you're contacting a car full of 4 gangbangers in the middle of the night with no dispatch. Does that sound safe? Probably not. Like, that's like, is it really worth it at that point when it's just like a trespassing thing? Maybe just let them do their thing and leave. Like, it's like, what's really important? And that those are in the days, like, but in the nighttime, certain hours, like, you didn't have a dispatcher, so you'd have to whip out your flip phone and call for help. It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, there's nobody on the other end of the radio, like, during that shift, so it's just like for show.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was pretty sketch, and a lot of like, that was a smaller department, but it was a lot of That was back in like 2009 or 10. But yeah, and then I moved to a bigger department around where I live. I think it's something like the third or fourth largest department in the state of Wisconsin here, and that was a whole new environment to be around so many other people, and that's where I got a lot of the like good training, and that's where I was hired to do 911 and get into that whole world. But like I said, that turned out to be a lot tougher.
Yeah, for sure. I could, and you probably learned so much from it. Like you were saying earlier, like you learned how to kind of compare it to everyday life and just be on your toes at all times. And
Yeah.
it's probably priceless information that you learned. And I'm sure, I'm not going to assume, but I'm sure you're grateful for the time you had in that industry, because it's definitely fascinating. It's very interesting to me. I actually interviewed a firefighter my last interview, and it just fascinates me, that line of work, the first responders, if you will, right? So
yeah.
Thank you for your service, even though I don't live in the States.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, I tried to make that clear in one of the early podcasts too. Is like I don't want to be seen as some like stolen valor guy, because I was not certified. Like I didn't go to the academy.
Right.
I had the choice to pursue it, but there was really no need for what I was doing, and I was more of the like controller 911 guy anyway. So yeah, I don't want people to think here like look me up in like the like that I what academy class were you in? Well, I didn't go, so like I didn't do that, but I still got out there, and I got to do a lot of good work, and I'm proud about the work that me and the team that I was with did, and the other team, like the 911 team, the shift that we had on at nights, because I was one of the night fighters, and turns out a lot more bad stuff usually does happen at night, which is kind of a weird thing, but that's also where a lot of the PTSD stemmed from. Is you're hearing all these. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but you're hearing a lot of noises and things that stay with you, like people, and we're talking like people dying and like kids getting killed and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it. You just get to sit and listen to it. It's like playing a YouTube video you don't want to watch on repeat over and over, and you can't actually get in there and do anything about it. It's horrible. And you can't always make sure, like, especially when somebody, if they were newer or whatever it was, couldn't do, maybe they didn't perform, or they couldn't get there, or they couldn't like find the address or do something on time, and you're just like sitting there pulling your hair out, because if you were out there, you know exactly where to go, you know what to do,
Right.
and that you're watching your part of your team stumble and fumble, and then they get there late, or somebody gets hurt or killed, and it's just like am I responsible for that? Because I'm calling the shots from, I'm telling this person where to go, or is that on them? Like, it was really hard to decipher, and then a lot of times you just wouldn't even go that route. You wouldn't even talk about it. That was pretty hard.
Yeah, definitely. And all the first responders, it's like you say, you feel guilty that these things happen to other people, even though you didn't do it. You feel like you could have maybe stopped it or prevented it. And I just couldn't imagine the helplessness. Like, obviously being disabled, I know the feeling of helplessness, but definitely not on that scale. Like
Yeah.
it's literally life or death in a lot of situations. And I don't think everybody's cut out for that job. That's for damn sure.
No, and it turns out near the end I wasn't either. Like, it got to the point where it was actually just making me ill, and
Right.
that's why I'm a big proponent to people are talking about all this like societal discourse and things that are going on with police right now, and I'm kind of like, it needs to be treated as like we do with our soldiers. Like, they get deployed, or they have this amount of time that they're essentially doing battle, or they're in combat, and if they're not, they need to decompress. Like, they need time to decompress and train and focus more on that. And that all comes down to money. Like, that's a money problem.
Yeah.
Because you can't pull like a third of your division off the street to put them in training, because then you don't have people on that shift, because they need warm bodies for the shift, and a lot of the money was already being taken away for other purposes within the city, or different programs, or where I live at least, and then the pay increases started not to keep up and you started to get like the same pay, or they were hiring at even lower pay than what typically somebody would be making when they come in. And so a product of that is like you have all these guys and girls out there who haven't had that time to decompress, who've probably been through some bad stuff, and then the other half who are probably getting poor training because of lack of funds in a lot of places. So what is a product of poor training, lack of equipment, and burnt out people? Not good stuff, I'll tell you that.
Right. Yeah, there's several factors, and it's it is what it is, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do with what you have, and sometimes it's unfortunately not good enough. And that's really just the reality of it. So I'm just going to take a break from my rapid fire segment. I always like doing the rapid fire. My guests seem to like it, and as I always say, just a little preamble. Don't worry about how quick you answer these. I'm not judging you. You're not getting graded. So. All right. Well, first question is, who is your favorite person from Wisconsin?
Holy shit. Does it have to be a celebrity?
No, it doesn't have to be. I always say whoever comes to mind.
From Wisconsin? Probably my wife. Honestly. Like I cannot think of at the moment of like, I'm sure there's got to be somebody out there, but usually I'm not one of those to like praise my home state. I'm not like
right.
I don't wear the apparel and all that. You know.
Your wife's a good answer. It seems to be common, and I always say brownie points are always good. So take them when you can get them for sure. And second question, what's your favorite thing to eat?
Oh, my favorite thing to eat, I think right now, is a Chick-fil-A sandwich with pickles.
I like that. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
Chicken's like anything chicken. I've always loved. If you could be anybody, living or dead, for 24 hours, who would you choose?
John Candy.
Really?
Yeah.
That was quick. That's
He's very charismatic. Seems happy, and he was in a lot of cool movies, back in the 80s. And
oh yeah,
seems like a fun guy. Either him or Chris Farley. Chris Farley that guy looked fun too.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. That's different. It's different. I like it. A lot of people usually say like the big ones, like Kobe Bryant was one, which I do understand his mentality, his whole way he lived his life, and the other one that I get, it seems a lot, is Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali
I can see that.
Seems common, very common, and. Well, that's all. That's like all the rapid fire questions I have. I usually only ask a few. I don't want to take too long on it, but I like those answers. It's good. So we'll touch on your podcast a little bit. We did kind of, but not really. So it's called the Chronic Victory Podcast. And
yeah.
What made you want to do a podcast? I'm just curious about that.
Oh, well, a lot of people don't like this answer, but that's okay. That's part of the game. So back, even when I was working, after I went through a lot, I don't know how much you know about me and like what I went through with my kids and stuff.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay. So after all that happened, that was a major game changer for me. And I knew that because I had survived that, because I had survived a lot of physical things that I did and had a lot of, we'll call it unexplained events, like events that happened at work that you can't explain with our logic or reasoning. And I give you an example if you'd like. So for instance, at work, this is kind of how I got to be known in the first place at work. And the reputation started to kind of be built, I guess you could say. We'd have to find somebody. Maybe somebody was suicidal. And this happened to me not once, but at least like 4 times.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a city of like 350,000 people. And so, it's actually the city of Madison. So somebody is in the city and they're suicidal, or they're going to hurt somebody, they're going to hurt themselves, whatever. There's a threat, something like active has happened. Like we have to find this one person. We have like nothing to go on. except for what they kind of look like. Maybe we don't even know what kind of clothes they have. And if it's fall and you're college age, most people are wearing like a black hoodie. That's like a really common thing. It's just black and black hoodie. So who knows? You know, and if you're looking for like a white male in their 20s wearing a black hoodie, there's like millions of them, it seems. So anyway, we're looking for like one person. And I would just go out and not like, I can't explain this, but I would just go out and I would find them like right away. I just like aimlessly not really having a purpose for what direction I'm going. And I'd get out of the car, I'd walk around, take a corner and go around into this weird little corner around the building. There's the person and got fight them and like bring them to the ambulance or whatever it took to like get them in. But okay, then how do you explain that in your report? Like how do you explain that? How did you know where they were? I get that question. I'm like, oh, I just got lucky, man. I don't know. Or I just play it up sometimes. I'm just like, I'm just good at what I do, man. Like just, just stupid stuff. But it was, that happened to me, man, at least 4 times that I can think of. And one was really dramatic. And it was just like, what is going on here? And why is it me? And what is happening? And then after the stuff with my kids, my firstborn was born not alive. And then the secondborn had seizures and had to get a spinal tap. And it was all like traumatic, bad stuff because at the same time at work, I was dealing with dead kids and
Right.
when I had my own kids, something like that switch was flipped for me. So that stuff really, really bothered me. That's where most of my PTSD stems from. And so I had all this stuff happen with kids, and then just stuff with kids just kept coming only on my shift. And I'm like, why? Like, why? I even remember just like being so frustrated. I was alone at night and we had this miscarriage call. And it's one that I can actually talk about now without like breaking down, but it was just me and it was just her and her dead baby, and it's like, why does it keep just being me? And I knew I had to like do something with that. There was a reason for all this. And it's only now, years later, that I could think of like it had to do with a higher power. It had to do with God telling me like, hey, fuckhead, you can handle this. This is why I'm giving you this. Like, isn't this what you set out to do in the first place? Like, didn't you want to do something? Like, this is what you asked for. Like, here it is. Deal with it. So I have to look at it like that now. And I was this guy, Clayton. I was like, okay, anything that came my way. And if somebody like maybe family would say, David, everything happens for a reason, I would tell them, fuck you. No, it doesn't. This is all random. This is all like, this
Right.
is like, if you worked on my shift, you would see it's a shit show and that everybody's like, everything that happens is random because you can't explain the reason for like a child to be beat so bad that they have to have like a craniectomy where they take the top of their skull off because of brain inflammation and then the kid dies. What is the reason behind that? But it turns out I was wrong. Like there is a reason for everything.
Right.
One of the best example I can think of, and I use it all the time, is, and I'm getting to the answer, trust me. But I had a friend who was going to be a Marine, and everything seemed to be going fine. And then one day he hung himself, and so yeah, and we didn't really like know. We found a journal that he'd been keeping, and he'd been having some real bad thoughts that he just didn't share with us, And so we all felt terrible about like, how could we not, like we were with him like every day. We didn't know. We just didn't know. And it's not our fault. It was his choice. But from that, as a product from that, at his funeral, my ex-girlfriend's there, who is now my wife, by the way. Like we were high school sweethearts. She dumped
Oh
my
wow.
ass, which I would never let her live that down, ever. I'm going to always bring that up as leverage. But she was there because she was friends with his sister. And so some of the guys were telling me, daring me to go talk to her because I knew our past was pretty rocky. And I went up to her and I talked to her and I don't even remember exactly what we talked about, like coffee and all these other things that we thought were sophisticated and stupid when we're like 21 years old or something, 22. And so from that, we started hanging out again when she would come home from college, and then pretty soon we're back together. And then her dad passed away, and I took care of their house. Like, I lived there because her mom was in the military. And I mean, we got married and have 2 kids now. None of that would have happened if my friend didn't kill himself. None of that. I'd have never seen her again, ever. I would not have my kids. And to think that I wouldn't have my kids, the thing that matters the most to me is my children. And to think that I wouldn't have that right now if this terrible thing didn't occur, that was enough proof for me that, like, these bad things can happen. And on the surface and right away, probably not going to look so great, right? I mean, somebody kills themselves, that's bad. We don't, like, that's not good. But you don't know how many years down the road that could mean something or change something or change, like, anything. It's I think there's a name, isn't that the butterfly effect, when it's like something that comes out? Yeah, it's kind of like that, man, where I've seen that more often now than ever, and I can't believe I was so blind to it. I think that was just my ego and my anger talking back then. And so, to answer the question, I knew I had to do something. And anything I usually did, man, I don't know if you're kind of like this too, where, like, you get excited about something and you start telling people what you're gonna do.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had heard. I can't think of his name right now, but he had died. He used to be a popular speaker back in like the 40s or 50s. Anyway, he said something to the effect of, if you tell everybody what you're going to do, the devil's going to know, and this is why people fail, is because they tell the devil what they're going to do before they even do it, so he has time to plan against you, right? And I thought, that's a neat concept. Wonder if that's true. So with the podcast, this is the first thing in my whole life I did, and I just didn't tell anybody until it was too late. Like, I already had 10 deep until I put it out there and told somebody what I was doing. And it turns out that worked. And I had a pretty, I don't know how much time you got left, but I had a pretty clear message from God that, like, you need to do this. Here you go. And even now I question it. Like, why? What am I doing, man? And this, like, do you feel like that? Do you feel like that too? Like, you're just like, am I even having an impact? Does this even, like?
Yes. Yes. I think that's only human. Like, sometimes I think, like, obviously what I'm doing is good. I know it's good, but I think, like, is this getting through to people? Is it really, like, do I really have that big of a voice that I'm changing people? And it happens. It does.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore because of all the people that I've connected with, but yeah, I get that quite a bit.
Yeah. So I even still have, I'm afraid to say, I still have doubts, and you know, you can't help but wonder. That's the human side of us, I think. And I had a pretty clear message to me one night when I was out for a walk, and the way I can explain it is, I even asked my friend this. I'm like, how do you know, like, one of my mentors, I should say, we talk about faith and spirituality a lot because I want to learn about that stuff. I never really gave it enough time in my life. So, you know, it's something I want to do before I die, but I'm asking him, like, how do you know if you're spoken to? You hear about people being spoken to and getting messages. And I'm like that, I never got it. Like, God doesn't send me anything in the mail, you know, like, I never got the message. He forgot my address. And he's like, dude, when you know something in your head is not you, you know, because it's not you. And I had, like, a profound message that I need to just keep going. And I'm talking about that unexplained stuff. By the way, you're only like one of 5 or 6 people that knows that. And so I just figured now is a good time than ever to bring it up. But so you heard it here first. I had another experience with, another friend of mine in childhood, that he was hit by a drunk driver, killed, the car rolled on top of him, burned him alive. It was horrible. And like 2 months geez, I think I was only like 11 when that happened. Like 2
Oh,
months
geez.
after his death, I had a very vivid dream of him, kind of like on his knees, and he was like this, and he was like looking at me. He's like, "It's okay, man. It's all good. Like I'm all good." And he was like going, and then there was this bright light above him, and he just told me it was okay, and I didn't really understand the context of it. And only 17 years later or whatever, like now, this was like a year ago, but I'm out for this same walk that I'm telling you about, and it was just like I got this idea, like, you've seen like heaven before, you've seen it before, it was showed to you. How, like, why are you questioning what you're doing? Why are you still having doubts about
Right.
this mission and your purpose here? Because I was, and it finally clicked, like what I was seeing when I was 11 or 12, like 11 or 12, like what I was seeing was proof, and I didn't need to be shown that. It was a privilege. So stop questioning what you're doing, stick to the plan. And even if you don't believe in God, you're not religious, you're atheist, whatever, and you think we're all just random, or we're all just star matter and this happened on accident, and me meeting Clayton and being on a show is just mystery. We're all just a bunch of atoms that happen to be here together. Even if you believe all that, which is perfectly fine because that's your right, the idea is to just, you're gonna doubt, but just keep going. That's the message. And I think you don't have to agree with me on faith or anything else to get that and to agree on that. I would say I would bet. I mean, that could benefit anybody. That if you're doing something that is overall good and you think is, as long as you believe it to be righteous and it's, for the moral best interest or greater good for people, you're trying to help people or do a service for people like you and I are doing, I think the message of keep going is pretty important. And so that's just something I think, like, that's how it all came to be, man. Another me taking too much time to explain, but it's just so much more complex than me saying, well, I just had an idea one day. It's like, it wasn't like that. This took years to come into play, and I didn't even expect to be here, but here I am, man. I'm here.
No, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with your answers, honestly. I like the in-depth because I hate, like, I shouldn't say I hate. I don't like that word very much. I use it a lot. I'm trying to get rid of it, but I dislike very much boring conversations. I've always liked deep conversations where you can get spiritual, and sometimes I'm a bit of a small talker, but it's very seldom. Like,
Yeah.
like I wake up, I'm talking. Like when my girlfriend's over, she needs her coffee before she can deal with me. Like there's a joke. She's got a shirt that says mentally rolling my eyes right now. And she has it specifically for me because I drive her nuts sometimes. Like I'll just rant for hours and I'll wake up and I'll start talking. And she's like, Clay, like, just let me have my coffee. Like, but I'm just not like that. I'll wake up and I'll just start yammering at you. Like a lot of my friends who have crashed when we've been drinking are just like, Clay, shut up. Like I need my coffee. But I love ranting and I absolutely love your answers. And about the faith thing, I'm not religious, but I'm also really into science, but I believe that spirituality and science should go hand in hand. They're both very important aspects of our lives. And it's, sometimes you do get those visions where it's like, yeah, you know what, I do need to do this. And it's fascinating how different people's stories are for why they started certain projects. So it's
I say this often too. First of all, I appreciate the your questions and the level of depth that you have. I think that's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you better.
Thank you. I
Than most
appreciate
people.
that.
But I explain it like I used to, like, think of the line of work I used to be in. Everything was like, the answers were based on evidence. And if shown enough evidence, like, would your answer change, or would your thoughts change? And I think most people would say yes. It doesn't mean they're going to get the answers, but I just feel like at this point in my life, I'm 31 going on 32 this December. And like, I've been shown enough, or I've seen enough that it's not random. Like there's enough evidence to suggest that there's at least something bigger going on than just the whole, like, we're a bunch of star matter just kind of formed up onto this rock, And I asked this question in podcast 41, that came out recently. I said, where are you in your body exactly? And I love that question because nobody really can answer it. And like people will say, well, you're in the head. Or it's like, well, the brain. Okay. Well, what part of the brain? Like point to where you are in the brain. Where are you? And you're just like, I don't know. Like most people are just like, I don't know. Like if we're just everywhere, it's like you get all these weird. You're actually your nerves, or some people will say like, no, you're just actually the cells themselves. Like there's all these crazy theories, and scientists think they know like maybe where we could be, like this electronical synapse part of our brain that can't be like touched. It's like, so when you're talking like that. Well, now we're talking about like spirit. Like, so do we have spirits? Like, I think so, yeah, because that's enough evidence to me right there that if we can't find ourselves in our own body, and it is the year 2020, like that's interesting to me. And then I like to bring up prophecy too. I'm like, so if you don't believe in spirits, do you believe in prophecy? I like to ask people that, and they're like, well, no. I mean, it's a good story. I'm like, well, can you think of any prophecies that like come true? And sometimes they'll cite something like maybe a natural disaster or something in history or something that Jesus did or anything like that, which is, I mean, you'll go from like the people that are, yes, all prophecy is true, it's real, to like, no, it's all fake and it's all stories. And then those that are in between. And I'm like, well, how about this? There's a prophecy that comes true 100% of the time. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is?
No.
Our death.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah,
Our
if I would have thought about it, I would have got that.
You would have got it, yeah. But if you think of it that way, so for somebody that says prophecy doesn't exist or it's not real, your death is already prophesized. Because none of us, you and I, can't say, hey, Clayton, I'm afraid I'm going to live forever, man. Like it's just going to keep going, man. And I can't safely say that. That's not a factual thing. And there hasn't been anybody that's been able to succeed in that yet, which would be scary if they could. But just that idea alone that I'm going to have this death in the future. I hope it's a glorious one, not a stupid one from like an escalator or something. But yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. And that's true. So if you could say that prophecy exists because of that, then is it possible that there could be other prophecies out there? And so you work your way back. So if those prophecy, so now if we think that prophecy may just be real, and now we think about our own destiny, and we go back to our own spirit, and then we go back to, our purpose for actually being here, and like a higher power or something of that nature.
Right.
And again, like I'm not converting people to Christianity. Like that's your own thing to figure out. Like I figured out my own. You guys can figure out your own.
Right.
Everybody has their own thing. That's fine. And I'm not trying to convert people, but what I love to make people do, probably as much as you like to keep conversations interesting, is make people think. Like I love to just make people think. And I love when people make me think, probably even more. Like when people make me think about that stuff. And I first, when that stuff I first read something about that, I don't even remember where some of that came from, but it's like, I just sat there like all giddy about it, because I'm into that stuff. I think about how much time we've wasted on like, what am I going to wear? Or like, just like, what are we having for dinner? Like all these kind of like mundane things in our lives, or just, I don't know, whatever our problems are. How much time do we waste instead of like kind of identifying what it all is, what it all means? Like, why are you here? Like, why do I exist? Doesn't that bother people more? Why shouldn't that bother people more, that they don't know why they exist or they're here? So I guess you could say I'm just at that point where I'd like to, I'm not going to have the answer most likely, but I'd like to have some better understanding. And I think that could make us all better if we just think more.
Yeah, tap into your brain a little bit more than just stupid stuff. Yeah, a lot of people waste time on just, well, like I said earlier, minutia, things that don't matter.
Yeah,
like, who cares what you wore that day or this day or what you ate this day? Or like, who cares? Like, as long as you're doing it and living, what does that little shit matter? It really doesn't. And that's definitely what I notice about a lot of people. So just touching on the more like the disability awareness part, are there any charities or advocacy groups that you support or that mean a lot to you?
Yeah, so I can think of a couple things that Ronald McDonald House means a lot to me, because that's where we the hospital where my kids were, like, they had a Ronald McDonald's house and we would stay there. It was on a special floor, and it's like this really nice, like it's almost like a hotel, but you don't pay. Like, they have all the donated supplies and stuff there, and a kitchen and kind of a family room. And you're not there on a vacation. Like, you're in there because you're not sure if your kid's going to live or die.
Right.
But it made it just so much more comfortable. And I always wondered, like, where does that money go every time you drop it in the thing when you buy a burger or something? And turns out I used it. We stayed in the rooms for several nights. We ate the food. We sat by the fireplace to just take a break and go back, because you're there all the time, and the monitors are beeping and stuff, and you just, like, anytime something changes, your heart rate goes up and you're just exhausted. That was the most exhausting thing I've ever done, was just sit there in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, with my kids, and just wonder all day for days on end. And to be able to go down one floor and have quick access to, like, if I had to get up there for the doctor or whatever, and somebody would usually call your phone if something happened or if something changes. They're really good about that in your room. And it was almost like a little hotel room with an actual bed. You don't have to sleep on that horrible rocking chair that they have in there, the wooden one that just hurts. Like, sleeping in a hospital room is like, man, I'd rather just stay up and be miserable. So to have those amenities, like, man, that meant a lot. And so anytime I get a chance, I donate to that. Otherwise, this might sound a little selfish, but Chronic Victory Podcast Patreon, man. Like, the show actually runs on patrons. Like, they pay the podcast hosting site, the website that's coming,
right,
is because of them. Otherwise, it's just me with the microphone, and so anybody that wants to be a patron, get some swag, and donate to the cause. What I do with the income, I don't pocket it. It goes towards the fees, the bills, the music licensing fee. I had a little poll out there, and turns out they liked the little music thing that I put in there. Great. But patrons are carrying this whole thing. So what I do with other than the bills, I would go to findyourhealthyplace.com, which is I don't think they shipped Canada yet. That'd be cool if they did, but they're a team of people at a natural, like a supplement store, all natural health, and I get a lot of stuff from them. So I use the money to get a lot of stuff, and then what I do is I'll do like a giveaway, or I'll just, like, people that I message with often, I'm like, hey, you want this stuff? You need this? Great, I'm sending it to you. And so I like to play the game where I like to just either send it to people that I feel like need it and could use it. I don't like to do a whole lot of, like, random giveaway stuff, because then how do you know if what you have at your disposal, you're giving it to somebody that could actually use it, as opposed to, like, just based on chance. So there is some of that, like, nitpicking. I donated a good amount of the proceeds so far to, actually, where I got this shirt, the Till Valhalla Project. It's a group of veterans that started a t-shirt business. People that part of their employees are disabled, and they were able to give them working on these t-shirts. So it's like, that's a good cause. Let's do it. And it's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, that's
my opinion.
That's great.
Like, so right now it's at the point where if there's leftover for, like, if the bills are covered and there's leftover, I find a way to give back to the people that either, like, hey, this person I chat with a ton of people on Instagram. So if somebody's like, David, I'm going in for surgery tomorrow, wish me luck. I'm like, first of all, that's a big deal. Like, what's your recovery like? So we start talking about it. It's like, hey, would you like these probiotics since you have an infection? Like, I'm going to get them from the Healthy Place, who are, they support me and I support them. We have this affiliate thing going on. So I'm able to provide them I'm able to it's almost like a first response thing for chronically ill people and veterans and anybody that is in need and actively in need. And then of course there's always the occasional giveaway. Like if my wife sees a sweet deal, she's good at spending her money. Oh shoot. There goes the brownie points. But if she sees a deal on coasters or stickers or something, I'll just write letters to people and just toss them out there and just give them to. Hopefully it's just a lift in their day, and just makes people I love to give people stuff. And even if it's $1 a month, I can make that dollar go a long way just to make somebody happy.
Right.
And I was talking to my friend Beth earlier today, and we often talk about so many people that say they feel isolated and alone, and I want to eradicate that completely, to where if you do feel isolated and alone, it's because you're choosing not to get involved with other groups and people. That's what I want it to be, because I'll tell you, I've sent out hundreds and hundreds of stickers and coasters, because that's all that I had, but and just handwritten letters to make people know, hey, I'm just one guy. I'm a disabled stay-at-home dad. I used to do this thing that I can relate to the podcast, and here's the mission to keep you in the fight for what? Life. So if you want an ally, if you want something that you can always turn on in the middle of the night and hang out with me, I'm here. This is what it is. Keep going. Keep going. You can do this, man. You got this. And here's a sticker. If I can do that and make somebody be like, all right, cool, then mission success,
No, yeah, no stickers. I may be 27 years old, but the sides of my chair absolutely decked out with stickers. Just random shit, like Barrett Jackson auction I have on my chair. I've got a War Amp sticker. I've got a graffiti C that my artist buddy Callum made me. I have some random ass vodka sticker. Stickers are great. It honestly, no matter how old you get, it just makes you feel better. Well, thank you for doing that. That's a really cool idea. I was actually going to get Patreon and just do the same thing as you, pay for some of the equipment, and then the rest of it goes to whatever cause I feel is righteous, and then that's the best way to be. Are there any other charities, or are those pretty much the two main ones? It's okay if there's not.
That's pretty much it. I like to, small business is hurting right now. So for people in the States, I tell them to go to findyourhealthyplace.com, use coupon code VICTORY, because it benefits the podcast, which by the way benefits all those other people that I was just talking about.
Yeah.
And small business, because they're small business. They have something like 18 employees, 4 stores, but they've really changed my life with some of the products, and they're real people. They're just good people. So that's it. I like to think that, what I'm doing hopefully branches out more. And I would, dude, start a Patreon, man. Because when I started it, I was telling my wife, I'm like, are you kidding me? Who's just gonna donate money? Especially people like us, man. If you have a lot of, I'm not working right now. Only my wife is. I'm doing the stay-at-home daddy thing. That's just the way it is. So, I mean, somebody's going to actually send their money to me. Are you kidding me? And it turns out you never know who's going to see it and be like, I like that. And they're going to pay you because they believe in the cause. You got to do it, man.
You honestly never know who you're going to get. Like this year, I'm not doing it. I'm doing something called Squat Up, which is a gaming for a charity here in Canada called Jesse's Journey. And that's for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And so Call
of Duty, right?
Yeah, I'll be playing.
I saw your story.
I already have $300 raised in a week. Boom. It's you just never know who's gonna hit you up and donate. And the laptop I'm doing my interviews for, it was a GoFundMe, and I raised the money, got the laptop, got my headset, got a webcam and everything, and everything that I use on a day-to-day basis for streaming or talking to people like you was donated. And just never know. And it feels great to donate to somebody, but it obviously feels good to get stuff donated to you as well. I could go on for hours thanking all the people that donated. It means the world to me that what I'm doing was provided. So basically, disability awareness for disability awareness. So there you go.
And I'm still getting the feeling like a salesman or like asking people for money, especially like if somebody's disabled or just chronically ill, having mental health problems. Like we already have enough co-pays and medications and things. Like we're usually broke. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So like, by the way, since you're broke, can I have $1 a month, please? Like and I'm not a salesman. Like I don't know how to, it's always a struggle to just be like, hey guys, I'm a real guy. I'm just one guy and I have a mission. This is my reason. This is the reason I exist, aside from raising my kids and being responsible human and just trying to be a decent human being. This is why I'm here, and not sound like a salesman. So because there is a lot of people out there who, I mean, we don't need to get into it, but just you don't know where the money's going, or they
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So I get it, but it's always hard. But like you said, you don't know until you actually get going.
Exactly. Well, and not to get into it too much, but there's registered charities that are shady, and the money doesn't go where they say it does. So yeah, honestly, you never know. It's buyer beware, donator beware, I guess, for lack of a better term. But there you go. Well, David, honestly, thank you so much again for doing this. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully, if you're down, I'd love to be on yours, and I'll definitely get a link out when this is posted.
Absolutely, man. I would love to have you. I snoop on anybody that like maybe wants to do something with me, and I was watching several of your other videos, and I'm like, I knew right away, like what you get is who you are. Like you're just you. You know, you don't try and be something else, and it was engaging, and I didn't get bored. And I thank you so much for actually carrying. This is only the second place that the second show that I've been on of somebody else's, so this is it's an honor, man. I can't thank you enough for listening to me babble about all the weird stuff that's happened in my life. And somebody will see this, somebody will see some of your work that maybe you didn't even feel it that one day, and you're just like, I don't even know if that was good. And then you'll hear like months from that date, maybe you'll hear from somebody that's like, yeah, I saw this and it really like changed my perspective. You'll just be like, whoa. And I've already heard that with you. So if you need any verification for what you're doing, I'm telling you right now, it's working. So you already did it. Just keep going, man. Get some.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that very much, man. And it's been an honor to connect, and we'll definitely stay in touch for sure.
Yeah, man. Give me like I'm having the podcast 1 year anniversary is coming up on the 18th. So give me like another month and we'll get you on.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, we'll stay in touch, man. Thanks again, and you have yourself a good night.
Yeah, thank you. Stay in the fight, brother.
Yeah, you too, man. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.